Straight in, let's go into this. How can we raise funds without actually focusing on fundraising? There are a few things we need to understand before we delve into the topic. And the first thing is people get tired of giving. That's just the truth. So no matter how awesome your work is, no matter how fantastic you are doing, no matter how great your organization is, people really get tired of giving, especially when you have to keep getting money from the very same set of people. They get tired of giving. The second thing you need to know is that people want value for money. So yes, they are donating. Sending a child to school is $1. With $1 we can buy school fee, we can buy shoes. With $2 we can pay two children's school fees. They want value for money. That's just the truth. And while they may give the first time, the second time, the third time, they will get tired. And why would they get tired? Because they want value for money. That's why they get tired. Yes, donor fatigue. Thank you, Sheung. I can see your comment. Thanks. So they get tired. That's donor fatigue. The next thing is trust plays a key role. I don't know why you can't hear me. 3 stars. Trust play a key role in getting funds. So people must trust you first. People give money to people for their organization. So yes, your organization is doing great work, but they know that it is because the organization has a great leader or a great boss. So they give you money. They give you money for the purpose of running your organization. So people actually trust you first. They have to trust you first and the work that you do. The next thing is, see, there's no two way about it. You need to open your own wallet first. If you don't open your own wallet first, there is no way I'm going to open my wallet for you. That's just the truth. So these key things that we have talked about are like the background information. Now let's go into the real reason why we are here. Yeah, the real reason why we are here is to understand 5 ways of raising funds without actually focusing on fundraising. And the first thing is this: see, expand your network. It is important for you to expand your network. So when I was starting out Brown Button in 2011, I knew that funding was going to be an issue. So I decided to focus on expanding my network instead. That is a roundabout way of getting money. Let me tell you how it works. So I joined different organizations, and one of those organizations was Women in Successful Career. So when I joined this organization, I met other leading women. The purpose of networking actually is to make sure that 1, people know you and understand what you do. 2, to also expand your view. Because when you get people to buy into what you are doing, that is when they will be willing to support you. That is when they will be willing to actually open their own wallets for you. When you network with people and when you meet them for the first time, see, never ever ask them for money. Listen to me, never ever ask them for money. I know how I feel when people are meeting for the first time in my Facebook inbox, not even physically, when they ask me for money. It's a complete turn off. It is a turn off. Never ever ask people you do not know and people you are meeting for the first time for money. Never do that. Instead, focusing on letting them understand this thing that you are doing, the work that you are doing, and the importance of the work you are doing. How do you let this work? You need to pitch your business or your organization. So when you are talking to them, you need to tell them about what your organization does. And see, most times these people do not have a lot of time. They are busy with several other things, and they have probably like 5 seconds to determine whether you are smart or not, 5 seconds to determine how good your business is or how good your organization is, 5 seconds to know if they should open their wallets for you. So those 5 seconds, they are very, very important. So if I ask you, tell me about your organization, and you go rambling and you say all sorts of things and you talk for 5 minutes, and when you finish I still say, so what exactly do you do? Just know there's a problem already. If you have spoken for 5 minutes, for even 3 minutes, and the person is still asking you, so tell me about what you really do, there's a problem. You need to work on your pitch. You need to focus on that thing that you really do. You need to extract it and be very, very clear about the things that you do. So when people when you meet people and they say, okay, so what can I do for you? It's a trap. Don't ask them for money. Don't even try it. Don't ever ask them for money. You know, you would feel like, oh, because they have said, so what can I do for you? You would not say, okay, so I need $10,000 or something. No, it doesn't work that way. It's still a trap. Instead of asking them for money, ask them for that thing that money can buy. So for instance, if you need a venue for a program that you are hosting, don't ask them for money to rent the venue. Ask them for the venue. So say something like, I don't know if you know anybody, you know, that can give us a free venue for our program. Or I don't know if there are ways, you know, that we can actually get a free venue to be able to host this program. Or we are actually considering, you know, having a venue for our program. Could you introduce me to somebody that may be of help? That is one way to go around this thing. So that person may either introduce you to somebody he knows or she knows that has a venue that you can use, or say, how much does a venue cost? And then you go about saying, okay, $30, $20, $10. And the person may now say, okay, so here is $10. Or see me in my office, you know, and let me see what I can do. That is a lead that you should pursue. So instead of you focusing on saying things like, give me money for a venue, don't do it. Don't do it. So the next thing we should talk about here is focus on publicizing your work. So last week I met with this young lady. She came to my office and she told me about the awesome work she was doing somewhere in Nigeria. And she brought a brochure, a hard copy brochure of different things that she had done. And I opened the brochure and I read this brochure, and you know, it was very she was doing awesome work. I saw pictures of all the events she has done, everything she has hosted and everything. But then I went online and I searched for her name and nothing came up. I went on her Facebook page and I didn't see anything. And I said, I can't see anything on your Facebook. It said, yes, is on the organization's page. Remember that people don't give the organization money. They give the people behind the organization money to do stuff. So if, for instance, I search for you and I can't see anything, I go online, I can't see anything, I have to actually get a hard copy brochure to know that you are doing awesome work, there's a problem. You need to publicize your work. You really need to people need to know what you are doing. And the reason why I emphasize on this is for a lot of reasons. So many of the partnership I've had in the last even up to 2 years is actually based on me talking about my work. So several calls I receive, you know, people start with, oh, so I was trying to find out about maternal and child health, and I was on Google, and Google, you know, referred me to your page, and I saw some of the things that you are doing. That's one way that people have reached me. Others will be like, so I was discussing with a friend of mine, and he was actually, you know, saying that I should talk to you about the issue of maternal and child health, or about delivery kits, or about entrepreneurship. That's another way, you know, this thing works. So if you publicize your work, and believe me, if you publicize your work, partners would actually come looking for you. Not just, you know, anyhow partners, like real solid partners would come looking for you. So now imagine if I have to be going everywhere in Lagos with a brochure of everything my organization has done. I'm limited already. How many things can I possibly do walking around Lagos? First of all, I will expend the money that does not exist, that I'm still struggling to raise, my time, my money, my investments, everything. I will be walking up and down the street of Lagos, dropping the brochure across organizations, when there's an online platform that I can use to reach far more people. I'm not saying don't do brochures and everything, but again, for the lady I met earlier this week, brochure is not a priority, should not even be a priority for her. Do you know how much it costs to print? I do not think that making brochures of your work is an effective way of actually running a business. Is an effective way of running a business. No, it is not. You should first of all leverage on all the free platforms you can get. Leverage fully on that. It's a different thing if a donor or a potential partner now says, send me a brochure of your work. And even in that case, what I would do is to prepare a PDF version of my work I'll do a PDF version. I'll do all those things. It will be very beautiful and colorful, and then I'll send it off. If they want hard copy, I'll print it off with a colored printer. I'll put a slider and a binder to it. That is what I would do. I would not, I'm trying to start my organization. I'm trying to actually get things moving. I would not expend cost on irrelevant things or cost on some things that have substitutes. And that is how it works. So the third thing we would actually be talking about, the third way of raising money without actually focusing on fundraising, is building sustainability. There are no two ways about it. Whether you're an NGO or a company, you need to build sustainability for your business. It is absolutely important. So one of the many questions I've heard over the years is, how can I build sustainability around my business? You need to always have your thinking cap on. You need to always have your thinking cap on about how you build sustainability. And the best way to do it is when you see problems, and when you see problems and you don't just say, oh, hey, yeah, this thing happened, sorry. When you see those problems and you start thinking, how can I make this better? How does it relate to the work that I do? How else can I work around this and build and make it something that would work as a sustainable plan for my organization? The chances are the problems you will get exposed to in the course of doing your work will be problems that are related to the work that you do. So for instance, in building sustainability for Brown Button Foundation, we had gone to this community and we had seen a lot of people, they had brought in a baby who was umbilical cord, had been severed with a rusty blade and broken glass, and he had contacted neonatal tetanus. At that point, I could have said, oh, yeah, and this baby has neonatal tetanus. Such a shame. And people, this shouldn't be happening in this day and age. I could have said that and stopped right there. But I didn't. Me and my team did not stop right there. We started thinking, so that means that it is possible that there's a problem accessing sterile supplies. And then we interviewed nurses and midwives, and they were like, oh yes, that this happens all the time, that this one is actually a rusty blade, that in some cases they use glass, and that was where the idea of Mother's Delivery Kits came up. And because we had also worked in some other communities and with some other organizations, it was also important for us to use the kits to build sustainability. You would say, okay, that's my own example, your own example is different from my own. I do some other work and everything. Let me give you another example about the girl I met earlier this week. So she came in and I told her about building sustainability, and she said, you know what, I just work with youths, I train them, and it's difficult building sustainability when you work with youths and when it's about training. Let me tell you something, there are always ways around it. If you think deeply enough and if you brainstorm long enough, you'd find ways around it. So for this girl, I told her that, look, you train youths. She said yes. On what? On fish farming, on piggery, on soap making, on disinfectant making, on perfume making, and things like that. Okay, so what happens to them after you train them? Well, they graduate and they move on, and then you get the next batch. See, that is where you should focus on sustainability. Your focus should not be on just turning out, graduates of your entrepreneurship school or of your skill enterprise. Your focus should actually be on how you can help them sustain their businesses. If you focus on helping them sustain their businesses, you would also build sustainability for your own business. Let me tell you my suggestion to her. So I told her, these people that you train, there are some really fantastic ones around them. She said yes, that she also trains some who she knows that they are really fantastic and everything. Okay, so why don't you push this your engagement with them a step further? Why don't you, for instance, pick those ones that are really excellent in what they do? For instance, if it is catfish farming, if it is sewing, if it is Ankara purse and bag making, why don't you set up a website for these people? And then with the website, help them reach more people. Help them reach people in other areas. Help them market their good. Help them rebrand it. So this brings me to another awesome example. So I'm going to talk about Oluwati. She makes this tea shea butter thing, and it is just awesome. She works with women in rural communities to make the shea butter. Now, the thing about this shea butter is, if you train these women to make shea butter and you leave it at that, that's just the end of it. You need to build sustainability for your own business. What did she do? She got the shea butter, she rebranded it in a nice pack, And it was really awesome. And then she sells it to people in Lagos and in other different areas for 1,000 naira. And it is really, really nice. Repackaging, rebranding, and all those things. And then she focused on it's just awesome. So when I see it, I want to buy it. But I also know that in buying it, I'm giving her sustainability. I'm also helping the women back in those rural communities who work on this shea butter thing. And that is what I told this girl. So you have this website, leverage on it, create this website, connect these people who do awesome work, this catfish business, this thing, connect them with people, potential buyers, and then you get a cut out of it. That way, you are able to build sustainability for yourself too. So the next thing we'll also be talking about is, we'll be talking about the fact that don't expend irrelevant cost. I've said this before, and that's the number 4 point. Don't expend irrelevant cost. See, when I was starting off Brown Button Foundation, I used a lot of volunteers. So I asked this girl, so where are you now? She said, she mentioned the city in Lagos, and she said she has an office, that the office is just a 3-bedroom, that she converted into an office. You are trying to raise funds. Now you have gone to saddle yourself with an office that you would need to pay for. For 2 years, Brown Button Foundation was running from my father's house in Yanopaja in Lagos. That is where it was running from. I focused on, one, the work that I do. I don't want any extra cost because I'm still trying to raise money for this organization. If I have to be paying rent, that means that as I'm running money to do the main things in the organization, I would also be running around to get money for rent and other things. This lady also told me that she had 2 permanent staff. And I'm like, why do you need 2 permanent staff? She said, somebody has to be in charge of social media. So I told her, look, when I was starting Brown Button Foundation, what I did was I called for volunteers, and I had all these volunteers. So I told them, look, even though we don't have skills in social media, what we are going to do is we are going to do a marathon session, tweeting and handling our social media platforms. You have to get them to buy into this thing. And when they buy into it, there's no turning back. And so we had different days for different people to tweet and different days for different people to make posts on Facebook. And that's how we went about this Brown Button Foundation setting out in 2011. So I had this team of people, this team of friends, and we were tweeting. I did not pay a kobo. I didn't pay anyone a dime. I didn't pay anyone $1. I just got them, organized them, made them do their tweets in advance, vetted it, and then once I vetted it, I would send it back to them, and then they would tweet. They would tweet from the organization's handle, and we were able to maintain social media presence then. So why would you now employ somebody full-time for social media, and then you would have to pay this person a salary, and then you are still struggling to raise money for this organization? It doesn't work that way. You have to cut your costs. It is important to cut your costs. So that's another way of going around it. One other thing I did with Brown Button Foundation, how I focused on, raising money without actually focusing on fundraising, was, look within your network. There will always be those group of friends that, you can just harass anyhow. You can say, look, I'm doing this thing, you must show up. There's always that one person that you can call. Even if you're having a program today and you've done all the publicity and people are not looking like they will show up, there's always that one person that will show up. That one person will show up. That one person is the person you need to always harass. Look, you have to do something for me. See my organization. We want to do this project. Just send me money now. Send me $100. Send me $200. Send me. There's always that one person. So that's why you also need to expand your network. So I had a lot of great friends when I was starting out my organization. And I still have friends who, because of their commitments today, they say, okay, so every birthday that I celebrate, I would give so amount towards your organization. You can have friends make those type of commitments to you and your organization. So I have lots of friends who do that for Brown Button Foundation. They say, Peju, this is so check. I would write this check every birthday, that's once a year on my birthday, and I want you to use it towards training women in rural communities, training traditional birth attendants and all those things. You need to have those type of people. And if you look well within your contacts, you would have those people. Those are the people you really need to leverage on. Now, those are people who are giving you money, not because of your organization, but because they know you. They'll be like, if I don't give her now, she will not let me rest. Let me shall give her. You collect it and prove them wrong. Do awesome job with it so that you now hold them and they are able to continually give, you the money every year like that. That's like our fifth point, but I see I have other points here. Okay, yeah, I've mentioned it, commitment of friends and everything. I read something on Facebook when I posted my comments, and the person said, oh, you know what, I really need this session with you because my idea is capital intensive and raising funds has been seriously challenging. Let me tell you something you don't know about Mothers Delivery Kits. When I was trying to transit into a sustainable NGO, what I focused on, I had there were two ideas. So there was Mothers Delivery Kit. There was also this other idea that was capital intensive. But I thought that this other idea would reach more people, and this other idea is the one I should focus on. And then I ignored Mothers Delivery Kit and went around chasing this idea and everything. But this idea was going to cost me several thousands of dollars. Many times you have ideas that are capital intensive, but if you look inward enough, there are also ideas that you take for granted inside you. There are also ideas that you believe, this idea, this one, nobody is this one. You will not just reckon with the idea because you will think that this idea is nothing. Now, more often than not, that idea that you think is nothing is the one that usually propels the organization. And that is exactly what has happened with Mothers Delivery Kit. Mothers Delivery Kit was not my first choice idea. It wasn't. And I'm sure if Bamidele will tell you that Mothers Delivery Kit was not my first choice idea. I had another idea that I spent a while chasing, and then I came back to Mothers Delivery Kit. Because Mothers Delivery Kit just sounds so simple, the kits and everything. The things you take for granted most times are the really essential things, are the valuable things, are the things you really need to purchase. It's just like what they say about little things. The little things are the things that really matter. They're the things that you should focus on. And that brings me to the end of this session. I am so happy my baby has not disturbed. I guess it's his own way of understanding that mommy has to work. I would be looking into the comment section to answer questions. I know that maybe we've had a few itches. We started off with the sounds not working. I had to restart. I'm hoping that the next session will be truly awesome. I hope that you have learned a lot. I have shared from my own personal experience on how I have been able to raise funds without actually focusing on fundraising. And I really wish you the very best. Thank you very much for joining me today. Bye.